Deepa, first, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Kiriba, for having me.
Deepa, let me start off with asking about your job role. You're the Senior Vice President, you're the Global Head of Sales and Marketing for the Taj Group. So let's start off with you explaining about your job role.
Okay, so it's exactly that, we are actually a global company, which is we have 120 hotels. Some of them are in India, predominantly mostly in India, with about 17 hotels outside of India. And my job is really, I'm what I call the custodian of sales and marketing initiatives and the brand, which is even more important. So it entails all of this things that you think a sales and marketing role entails, which is basically brand development, brand building, looking after all aspects of mapping consumers, doing research, coming up with experiences, developing those experiences, really actually spending a lot more time on the brand because that is more strategic in nature, and also looking after the sales aspects, which is structuring the sales department, tweaking the structure as we go along, ensuring that we meet the different segment requirements, and more than that, it would also mean looking after the loyalty aspect, the distribution aspect, and all of the marketing aspects, which is a 360-degree marketing role that all marketing heads do. So I've been head of sales in the past, and that was for quite some years, and then been head of marketing for all of 6 years, and then I was given this role as head of sales and marketing. So it's a very, very a challenging one as well, because from a perspective that you're managing different geographies, managing hotels in different locations, they're very widespread. So whilst you're looking at the domestic market, which is fairly much more easier because we've worked in this market for many years. We've the brand has been over 100 years old, so that's more understandable. But going into markets when you're not only looking at those markets as key source markets, but actually working in those markets, so like the US or South Africa or Australia, Malaysia, wherever we have hotels, that is the really exciting bit, because there the challenges are very different.
So it's interesting that you had this role as head of sales, and then as head of marketing, and then now you club these together. But underneath this is just so much varied roles. You're in charge of advertising, you're in charge of PR, you're in charge of social media. How do you ensure efficiency in each one of these roles?
Okay, so like I told you that besides the fact that I would really look at overall strategy and ensuring that I have a framework that in one single value system embraces the customer, the financial performance, the competitor, and all of that. And also, like I said, building on the pillars that really are the main drivers for the company's performance. But beneath that, if you look at it from a perspective that how do I do it, I have a very, very great team, and it's structured for success, because I think one of the success factors is how we structured our sales force, how we structured our international sales offices, the kind of structure we've set for marketing, that I don't think any company had even thought of that. Because when we went into a single point of contact with our customers, because we wanted to ensure that they didn't have too many people knocking on their door, all their requirements were met with one being in contact with one person, ensuring that we got thereby a larger share of the wallet, because when one person's looking at an organization or a customer, they can actually then charge best what works for him across which brands. So I think that structure of a single point of contact other than the fact that we broke up our functional heads as per segments. So we have a head for MICE, which is meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions. We have a functional head for, say, international business that comes in, which is travel trade. So we broke up the segments with functional heads looking after those segments. As we rolled out our brand architecture, we realized the need to have brand heads. So in marketing, whilst we have all the traditional marketing functions, we have brand marketing heads and brand sales heads who actually take care of their brands. So it's structured that way, and there is a lot of great review mechanisms that we use, and it's a very, very what do you call it, agile team, because there aren't very many layers. So even though it's not very hierarchical, it's more it's like a matrix system, it works best for our company. So it's been like that, and I think we've been able to really achieve success in this market. And the fact a lot of international competitors have now decided that they should also have micro market clusters says a lot for us. That we thought
just like how Taj has been doing.
Yeah, and because we've been doing it for a while. And the fact that we were the only Indian company to go into this whole brand architecture exercise, which was really, really something that has held us in good stead, because we saw market opportunities way ahead in time.
Deepa, you played a very critical role in establishing the brand architecture. So tell us about what that architecture is and what was the vision in which you and your team created.
Okay, so I must say that whilst all of us played a critical role, it was really the organization that was behind this whole framework coming about. And I think the trigger point was that sometime around 2002 or 2003, we realized that as we went along, every one of our hotels, as part of our opportunistic growth, was being prefixed Taj. And slowly we realized that we were actually mismanaging customer expectations, because when a customer came and stayed at some of our hotels, he got a luxurious experience, and then he went and stayed in another hotel and it would be a 4-star experience. So therefore we started to wonder, what is Taj all about? Is it a luxury group? What is it? And I thought that we had impeccable luxury credentials. I mean, here was a more than 100-year-old brand that had all the attributes of a luxury brand, from the perspective of saying it had the heritage, it had that whole obsession for quality, authenticity, antiquity. All of those aspects and attributes make for a luxury brand. In addition, it was also very innovative, because as we went along, we redefined luxury for ourselves, and we weren't going to let that go. So we said, if we have to really go out there and ensure that we don't erode the equity of the Taj, then we need to do something about it. At the same time, we realized that there was a lot of research being thrown back at us, where we realized that there was a huge amount of market opportunities in categories that we didn't exist in. So we decided to do a lot of further research. So there was like diary placement, conjoint analysis, a lot of focus groups, a lot of research that we used to do over a period of time. There was the brand asset valuator study, which actually said that certain brands that have a high level of knowledge and a high level of relevance, which the Taj brand had, because it had huge footprint and was around for so many years, really actually could get commoditized if they didn't work on the differentiation and esteem. And that was something that we thought that we had everything going for ourselves, because our brand drivers were the Grand Palaces, a very unique portfolio. And so we said, okay, so we're going to work on this. And so these studies that we did, which was brand equity studies, everything pointed towards saying that, you have to sharply define the Taj brand for its success in the future. At the same time, we realized that there was a lot of opportunities that we had to go out and grab, and these were opportunities lying in different categories. So there were different segments, and newer audiences and newer customers that we needed to acquire. And these were all these customers that were at the level of, say, an upper upscale segment or an upscale segment, and we mentioned also the budget segment. Having said that, we got together with Landor, which is a branding company very well renowned, and started to have a lot of debate in the company to say where is the perfect fit for these hotels that we already had. So we said, okay, the luxury bit was very, very simple, because you knew all your luxury hotels, the grand palaces, you had your exoticas, your safari lodges, your city hotels like the Taj, say Bombay, Taj Lands End, Taj Mahal Delhi, and so on. That fitted very well in the luxury segment. However, there was a whole lot of hotels that would sit very well in the upper upscale segment, and we felt that that was not good enough, because we used to work with the category called Taj business hotels. You know, it was categorized as Taj leisure hotels and Taj luxury hotels, and that was not how a consumer really you know, kind of uses hotels.
Correct.
You know, he's the same person who goes on business, he's the same person who goes on holiday, and we started to work on more than demographics, the psychographics of the consumer, and then came up with saying, who is going to be our typical customer, who's our current customer, who's going to be a potential customer. So a lot of study around that, and who is this person, and what is this person about, and what is he going to like about a brand. And then operations, the branding company, and ourselves, the just marketing group, got together and said, let's start to work on the customer engagement journey. So from starting from, you know, pre-arrival to arrival to departure and so on. So for example, in the grand palaces, we said, you know, we should actually amplify what they are all about, the amazing heritage that they have. And we also, one of our big values is restorative ethics. So we said, ensuring that not only the fact that when we restored those palaces, we went about it very sensitively, but also the experience had to be equally sensitive and equally nurtured. So we looked at it and said, if customers were coming in, why wouldn't we give them an option to come in a vintage car as well as a Range Rover if he so wanted. But the fact that we introduced vintage cars as arrival and departure you know, options, added to that the layer of saying when they arrive at a palace hotel, they should have a sense of arrival. So what should that be? So in different palaces we did different things. In Lake Palace we did the shower of petals, and Umaid Bhavan Palace we had that royal welcome that they would do with the sword salute. And so we had these options, and then we went further and said, okay, so when these people come in, they would like to really experience the palace. So could we do bespoke dining? So we said every general manager has to look at 5 or 6 spots where people could dine. So it could be in a tower, it could be in a turret, it could be on the lake, it could be on a pontoon, and created that whole experience. And also thought that, you know, when people are in an amazing place like that, they want to know more about it. So we started what you call the Champagne Heritage Walk to really explain the heritage of the property. We introduced what we call the royal butlers, because they were third generation retainers. So we said they had to be very special. And this whole experience started to come alive. And I think the most exciting bit that the company felt, and I think the one that all of us enjoyed, was really building the brand and building the customer experiences, and then actually putting them into place, implementing them, very, very rigorous and robust way of training and bringing that whole philosophy out there, and finally making the brand promise happen. And then trying to measure how that was doing. So across all brand metrics, saying how our customer engagement scores going up, especially on those attributes that we want to drive. What is media saying about it? What are customers saying about it? And this is very, very what you call it gratifying, that when we launched Vivanta, and it was such an amazingly curated brand, that people started to say exactly what we had envisaged, calling it a really cool brand, calling it informal luxury, a brand on the run, you know. And Wallpaper is one of the magazines that our target audience reads, and they said it was the smartest thing that Taj could have done, to really go for that kind of customer, and to be able to deliver to him in the manner in which we were doing it, because the brand driver for Vivanta is stylishly spirited, so everything around the brand is like that, you know. So again, that whole creation bit, the curation, was the most exciting bit. And I think today, as we step back and say, you know, they are nascent brands, but they're doing so well because Gateway was born in 2008, and Vivanta was launched in 2010. But I think they've come a long way, because if you look at top of mind recall in their customer segments, so in the upscale segment, Gateway stacks up number 3.
Right. So can you give us an order how you segmentized these hotels?
Okay,
Which is the one
so so Taj is our luxury brand, and Vivanta by Taj is the upper upscale brand. Gateway is the upscale brand, and Ginger is the budget brand. Now, each one of these brands has a clearly defined proposition, addresses a clear target audience, is also very clearly differentiated, and a lot of white space is created between our own brands and between us and our competitive brands. So we've sharply defined the fact that our brands will stand very, very unique, and will stand on their own, except for the fact that Vivanta by Taj is a endorsed brand. So when we were looking at the brand framework in at the initial stage, we could have gone into being a house of brands like P&G is, or a mono brand like GE is.
Right.
But we decided for us the hybrid model worked best, that Taj would endorse the Vivanta by Taj, whereas Gateway and Ginger would be two brands that would stand on their own, because they were in a different category, addressing a different audience. And in the future, we could have many more brands, or these brands could proliferate sub-brands. So, depending on what we felt consumer insight would throw up later.
I also noticed that you've been with the Taj Group for a very, very long time. So how long have you been with the Taj?
Well, I would say 28 years is a long time. It seems like ages, but the fact that I've worked in every market in the Taj Group, and been moving around a lot, was almost like a new job, because you're working in different geographies with different set of people. So it almost seemed like that I'd changed a lot of jobs, but in the same company.
There's also a thing that if you have to grow up career-wise, then you jump jobs, but it's exactly the opposite out here, Deepa.
Yeah.
Which is within a group, there are so much other opportunities that one can take up, and that's exactly what you've done.
I think the fact that the Taj is large enough and is an organization that really respects its people and nurtures its people. Every time that for example, I would be my husband would get transferred and I would say, okay, I'll resign, they would always say that can't we give you more scope and scale wherever you're going. They never ever said let's part ways. They always said that, we can give you something more to do, and even if it meant crafting a whole region out. So I remember once going to Sri Lanka and they said, we have 3 hotels there and we have 2 in Maldives, so we'll craft you a region to oversee. And that I thought was really amazing, and I think that kind of organization really gets reciprocal loyalty back. And so it's been an exciting journey, because whatever I imagined that I wanted to do in terms of sheer creativity or performance was available in the Taj. So I didn't ever need to look out, and there were enough and more opportunities going in the group. So I think that is in a very, very unique position to be in.
Deepa, who are the people who's inspired you in your life, and what specific traits did you imbibe from them?
Okay, I think it's I'm not talking about very esoteric stuff like world leaders and so on, because I do have my favorites there, but just coming back home to something that is more realistic. Everyone is really actually impacted by their previous bosses, and I was really fortunate to have some very incredible people who I worked for. So directly, many years in my life, I worked for a boss who was very tough, but she was extremely creative. And I think that her approach was that the more you actually threw people into deep challenges, that they would sink or swim. And if she was one of those people who also selected people herself, personally selected every staff, and I think that's always been our tradition, that even if we have to take or hire a person at whatever level, it's a personal involvement with that person, from recruiting to training to mentoring. I think that kind of training that we had continues. So she obviously would say that if I've chosen this person is capable of a lot more, but she would keep raising the bar, you know. So it's always that you felt that, you know, I'm good but I'm not good enough for her. So that was really tough, and she was a very, very tough boss, I must say. It was like not easy working with her. And then the person who took over from her obviously also worked for her and was my immediate boss. Amazing, because that person learnt that to smoothen the edges that she had and yet take on some of those aspects. Very fair. Was amazing in terms of the delegation. Would always say, you know, do what you think is best and come to me for direction. That's all.
Deepa, you're at such a position that you have multiple roles to play. How do you eke out the best work-life balance, and what advice would you give for women?
So I would say that it's really important that you have a work-life balance, because if you don't have one, then you're not going to be able to lead people the way you want to, because you would not be a complete person. And if you're not a complete person, you cannot be a complete leader. So it's very important that, especially a woman in the hospitality industry where the hours are really, really long, you have to ensure that you work smart, you actually utilize your time and multitask. And I think women are so good at multitasking that, you know, at any given time you structure your house. So one thing I would do is that I would set menus, say, for a whole month, you know, and leave it with my cook and say, this is what you're going to cook, and make sure that everything was there in advance. So some amount of that structure that I had at work, I would put that structure into place at home, so I could manage everything. But I think you become an amazing juggler. So any woman who can juggle and multitask is somebody who would be able to do it well. Also, I think prioritize what's important, because sometimes you look at your house and say, oh, you know, I can see a speck of dirt there. Just ignore it. Don't obsess about it. But if you are at work and you see that I haven't done something, prioritize it, see how important it is, and ensure that that's done. Because I think that whole act of juggling and always being I think the biggest thing is be genuine and be a human being. And I think that's one important part of you know, this whole balance, because then people are able to really give you that slack at sometimes when you can go up and say that, you know, it shouldn't be that, you know, women are very, very conscious that they never ever want to show anybody that they're slacking off, so they work too hard, and that tells on their, say, health or their family life or their you know, relationships. So I think the one good thing is that be so very genuine that people know that when you do come to them and say that, you know, I may need some time off, that there is some merit in giving that. So with women, I would say that be very, very conscious of what your priorities are, but it shouldn't be that you should be driven by anyone, because it can't only be that you want to say that I'm only going to be investing in my job or only going to be investing in my home, because then you're doing injustice to the other part of your role. And I think just balancing that out is, you can just do it by being a little hard on yourself, but a little smart on yourself, you know, smart about it. Thank you.
Deepa, thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you
been such
so
a pleasure
much.
talking with you.
Thank you. Thanks.